Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Tangawizi podcast. I am your super host, Caroline Momanyi. Lovely to be back here unpacking identity across the lifespan. And we're going to delve into identity and spirituality. We hope we're going to enrich and still keep you moving. And with me today, we still have...
Welcome, everyone, to the podcast. My name is Drusilla Okuna. I wish you guys could see my view. It's so beautiful. It's so amazing. I am very excited about this episode, and I just cannot wait to introduce our guest for today. But I'm not going to introduce him.
Yeah.
Let him introduce himself. Welcome to Tangawizi.
Okay, thank you. I'm Kareem. I'm Sadhguru's stunt double. So when you see him on the motorbike, that's actually me. No, kidding.
Who are you really? Are we at the right place?
No, I'm the founder and former owner of Bikram Yoga Nairobi. It's the first commercial yoga studio in East Africa.
Mm-hmm.
We built it. It was 5,000 square feet, juice bar, boutique, and that's where I express my love for yoga. I've recently sold it. And that's me.
Wow. Thank you so much for making time. We have been waiting for this particular moment to just, sit with you and unpack identity and spirituality. And I can say I am feeling the spirit.
I'm in. It's all around.
I am feeling the spirit. So it's really quite set for us. Yeah. So maybe you can... if you feel comfortable to share and also feel comfortable to reveal as much as you would love to, you can just, tell us something about what is your view about identity and spirituality?
Well, I'll start with spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
I have a very kind of practical view of spirituality. I believe that it's very easily experienced, and the doorway to spiritual life is just at our fingertips and available to everyone in very simple and practical ways. It's not woo, it's not far, it's not some unseen force. And so I believe that a natural life is both a physical life and a spiritual life. And if it's not in balance, then you're not really living a full life. So that's kind of my view on spirituality. It's kind of very practical.
Mm-hmm.
And with regards to how it relates to identity, I feel like, you discover your identity
Mm-hmm.
through an introspection. That introspection is a spiritual journey, and it's actually through that spiritual journey you come to discover and know yourself. And I feel like that identity is actually more of a journey of discovery
Mm-hmm.
rather than creation.
Mm-hmm. I think we are having this conversation, and it touches a lot on young people embracing that process of discovering their identity and tied to spirituality. But looking at the current times, we are in a space where what we are seeing more is people young people trying to separate themselves from that element of affiliating either to a religion or, a spiritual path. And, I don't know, I can't blame them because there's a lot going on. There's a lot to discover, and there's a lot of discernment that we need. So I don't know, like for a young person, is this even necessary for them to look at the possibility of unpacking or taking on this journey to understanding their spirituality and how it informs their identity?
Yeah, I think that's a very, very good question. Like, whatever you do, you need to have a clear and logical need to do it. You don't just need to do things for the sake of doing them. So,
Mm-hmm.
so the question is why? Why go down whatever spiritual path you're going to go down? And we're also talking about in the context of identity. So often identity is created in the context of society and culture. And what happens if your society and culture is in fact sick, is in fact not really a positive one for anybody who really follows it full-fledged? And you yourself as an individual, of course, you want to live a positive, full, and meaningful life. And so if whatever answer I give you or anybody gives you takes you in the direction of being of value to you, making your life positive or meaningful, then you'd want to do it. And I feel like personally, the only meaningful, positive life is one in which you access the whole of your potential. You really understand your full nature, right? If you're only encouraged to develop a part of your nature, you're an unbalanced human being. So what if nobody ever tells you you're an unbalanced human being? You still won't live a balanced life, right? And I think that's what's happening. People are living unbalanced life, but nobody tells them, and nobody's encouraging them to see other side of things and become whole. Yeah. That's my perspective on it.
Yeah, because we are told as we start growing up, you're supposed to think about your schooling, your career, and not a lot of emphasis on like spirituality. Yeah. I don't remember like in my formative years, getting a candid conversation with a person on this is a very important path for you to pursue because it does make you wholesome, but when it came to like school, sport, all those other facets that made me, there was a lot of effort that people are putting to say, do this. But what you're saying is that we are walking around unbalanced, and I'm like, wow, okay. Yeah. So how do I arrive at the point of knowing that I am now unbalanced?
Well, it's interesting. The way you put it is also very interesting. Like you're encouraged to learn this in school, have these beliefs, have these habits. And okay, I'm not a very mainstream person, so I'm not going to have a very mainstream point of view on a lot of things. But for me, that's all preparation to be part of the machine. What do I mean by the machine? This machine of society in which you are a productive member of society. Productive, producing for whom? Producing why, right? Who does this society actually serve, right? And so if you go to school, primary school, secondary school, university, they will teach you how to get a job, will teach you how to be part of a corporation or have certain specific skills in which to contribute to the overall society, to the overall workings of things, right? But will they teach you how to think independently?
No.
Will they give you a sense of understanding of the nature of the world you're living in? Will they give you a real and truthful accounting of your history, right? No, you only get the education insofar as it serves the machine, right? And that's society.
Kareem,
and do you want to go deeper? I told you I'm not mainstream.
I hear you, and this is the real stuff. Yeah. Yes, Dazila.
For me, I think the things you're saying in terms of your identity and your spirituality, first of all, how accessible it is. So for a lot of us, it's been that thing that is outside of you. So you go and find it in church, go find it in a mosque, you go find it somewhere, but not within. Yeah. So just as it said, we are not taught how to go within. We're always just going outside to look for ourselves. Yeah. And I love what you're saying. We do not create our identity, we discover. So it still goes back within, right?
Yeah.
So how do we do the work? Like, how do we go within, right? Yeah. Because I feel like we're just going outside of ourselves for everything, really, right? You want to have a good time, go outside of yourself. Yeah, you want to be peaceful, go somewhere to be peaceful. You want to achieve something, you have to do a lot outside of yourself. Yeah. And then the inner person is not developed at all. Yeah. And then stuff happens. Yeah. Then you're having an identity crisis. Sometimes it comes when you're 20. Sometimes it comes when you're 40. And how do we navigate? How can we cultivate that spiritual identity from a very young age? Let's say I'm 19 or I'm 18. Where do I start? Especially if I've been indoctrinated to do it a certain way, like outside of myself. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's a really neat observation you made, that spirituality is out there, right? And so if it's out there, it almost takes the form of like an idea. Okay. So I'm going to be a spiritual person. And now this is this idea of what a spiritual person is.
Sorry to
Right?
interject, but now it's become even a buzzword now.
Yes.
That people are saying, I'm not a religious person. I am spiritual.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hashtag spiritual.
Yeah.
And even in that, and even the way you're kind of mocking it, is there's something there to be mocked because it's not, there's something that you're noticing, it's not authentic in some way.
No, it's not.
Right? And that's coming back to this thing that it's external. And if it's external, it's basically an idea, it's a concept.
Mm-hmm.
And then we engage our conceptual mind in how we're going to achieve this concept. Oh, I'll say mantras. I will take on an ideology. Again, these are all idea things, right? And that whole realm of ideas is exactly where spirituality doesn't lie.
His stories are
You
just.
will not really find it there.
Well.
And your question had the answer in it, because you're saying that's not where you find it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's just an idea, right? And I'm in full agreement with you, right? And so you don't find your spirituality in pursuing an idea, right? You find your spirituality by observing what is actually occurring within yourself and around you, because it's actually there, right? It's not, it's, you know, I think this is a very good point, that your spiritual life is not some idea. It's something so real and so rich and so natural. Do you hear that a lot? No. Right?
Yeah.
But that is what it is, right? And if it's so real, so rich, and so natural, and so available to all of us, why are we not hearing that? Right? It's almost as if we're being diverted from that.
Yeah, I'm being conditioned to
Right.
pursue something that is
Yeah.
not real.
Right? And we're being diverted from that, and in the diversion of us human beings, us individuals from that, we are being robbed of the richest aspect of our existence.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you know, when you look at the ails of the world, the ails of society, it's evident, right? How people relate to life but that spiritual aspect is here for us all, and is available to us all, and it's just about perspective, right? The perspective we have in this life, believe it or not, is actually a perspective that was handed to us.
Yeah.
It was delivered to us here. Look at life this way, right? You know, now if you switch your perspective or try to become curious about other perspectives and through your own feedback of legitimacy and discernment, and see if there is another perspective that you can take on, then you by yourself can see, is the one that was handed to me or the one that I'm discovering for myself, which holds water, which is valid, which is real, which is of benefit to me, right? And now that's the reclamation of your sovereignty.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah.
But you know, you're asking young people a very hard thing to do, because you want people to introspect.
Yes.
You're saying that the power to begin or to embrace this path of spirituality is within.
Yes, absolutely.
There's so much noise without.
Yes.
You know, so are we going to arrive even? Yeah. It's the hard work. Like we don't have time. We are young, you know, we don't have time.
Yeah.
But this is time consuming.
Yes. It's very interesting that it's very interesting that you bring up time.
Yeah.
Time is a construct. There are societies that exist in which the normal sense of time, the clock of this time and that time, it doesn't exist. Yes, cycles exist. The moon cycle exists. The day cycle exists. They find themselves in rhythm with that. But this time, in the sense that time is actually stress. Just bend your brain a little bit. Imagine if it's possible to have stress without time.
No, it's not possible.
Every stressful situation has a time component to it.
I'm thinking of we are pressed of time.
Right? So again, that comes back to time as a perspective.
Back to perspective.
Yeah, and you're talking about youth. So if you go really far back into youth, you take babies before they understand language. These are spiritual creatures.
That's true.
Look at how they operate. Look at how they engage. Look at how present they are. right? And then you talk about the ails of introspecting, the challenges of introspecting. And there are so many challenges of introspecting because, like I said, I started by saying this is a sick society. When I say it's a sick society, I'm not saying Kenyan society is sick. I'm saying global society is sick, right? The colonization that came here brought that sickness here. I don't know what it was before because I'm not exposed to that history. Where did that history go? We don't know what it was before. At least I don't, right? But a sickness was brought here in the sense of this global mentality of and so that sickness is creating trauma in people. I can give you different ways it creates trauma in people. Like if you put parents in a rat race, right, where there's so much scarcity, artificial scarcity, right? They're on the rat race, they're hustling, they're coming home, they're not kind to their kids, right? They're suffering. That suffering is passed down to the kids, even if they're not beating them or whatever. Maybe they are beating them, but they're not loving and spending time and being present with their kids, right? There's so many ways in which in this society we are traumatized. We are sensitive, beautiful, strong, but also sensitive creatures. Sensitivity is such a beautiful thing, right? But with this sensitivity, sensitive, innocent creature receiving so much pain all the time, where is that? You bury that pain somewhere. You run from it. So now, paying attention to what you're feeling, what's happening within you. You don't want to do that because the trauma has created that to be a painful experience. And I think that has to, as you're bringing in, as you're doing, has to be put on the table and acknowledged properly that yes, this can be and will be painful. Healing, I think by necessity, is going to be painful. But not only painful, there are other aspects that can make it manageable and beautiful. And where you end up, it's so worthwhile. But back to your point, what's motivating people to do that when any foray into it feels difficult?
Yeah, because as you're speaking, I'm just thinking about the fear. Like, okay, let's say I have the time. Let's say time is a perspective. But am I ready to even really embark on this spiritual path? Because what will I find once I start introspecting? And if I find it, do I have the capability to manage, to cope, to sit in it, to deal with it, and to truly be a spiritual person?
So again, I'd say perspective.
Yeah.
What do you find? I have a perspective on it, right? So I would say you find a portal into a real life, to the real life. So what am I implying when I say that? I'm implying that if you don't do that, you're never going to live a real life. And you'll never know that you haven't lived a real life because everyone around you isn't living a real life, right? And so you compare yourself to others and you don't know what you've lost.
Where? I'm seeing Instagram and all the reels.
I want to ask you like a personal question, Kareem, because I want to like just find out something, maybe to be useful to our listeners. At what point did you feel like, maybe I need to start looking within in your own life with it? And what led you to that point?
Okay, that's interesting. Thank you for that question. I won't go into details, but my life started with a lot of trauma and a lot of pain. And so how I coped with that pain was I compartmentalized that pain and buried it and I had coping mechanisms that looked for safe spaces. One of the things I used to love to do is like eat and watch TV, right? Get a nice meal, watch my TV and block everything out. Everything I was feeling, everything. So I grew up with the opposite motivation to look inward and to see. I was on the opposite end. But something also told me, which was contradictory to this thing, that the answer to my life and to my problems is going to be found inside and not outside. So I already had a personal understanding that going and trying to create my circumstances the way I wanted them, maybe a good job, good money, good thing, it wasn't going to heal me or satisfy me. That if I was ever going to find peace, I was going to have to find it inside out. Right? So I had these contradictory things. And so I went from doing everything I could to not pay attention to how I was feeling, the pendulum swinging in me, to now doing everything I can to pay attention to everything I'm experiencing. And that's part of the healing journey for me. And so I don't claim to be anywhere, but I think I'm headed in the right direction. And I'm getting feedback that I am, for me personally, because you asked that question on a personal basis.
Yeah, I really like that. And because perhaps someone is feeling like, the thing that I really like the most that you've said, your coping mechanism was a good meal and TV. And that's such a normal, natural thing to do. And sometimes we are not even aware that we're blocking by just doing normal activities that seem very normal in our culture, that you have your meal, feels good, and you're watching something really nice and you're blocking out the noise, right? And then the other thing that we struggle with, even when we're told, just eat without watching the TV. Just like when you're having a meal, switch off the TV, sit and be present with the meal. We can't even do that. Yeah. And to me, it has called me to attention. Yeah. Like, listen, how many times do I do that? Like, do I just have, I can't wait to get my ice cream and sit and watch my favorite show. Yeah. And I'm just coping. Yeah. Because a lot of people, when they think of coping mechanisms, they're thinking about you're doing drugs, you're going outside, doing all kinds of crazy things. But sometimes it can just be the normal day-to-day things that are very normalized in our culture. Yeah. But you're also doing that just to not go within, right? So that's actually quite interesting. Yeah.
But an aspect of that coping is actually soothing.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. So you have that, oh man, I don't know if you guys get Haagen-Dazs here, man.
Yes, the ice cream.
Oh man. Haagen-Dazs in a show, man. Gosh, that's excellent, right? And there's a soothing feeling to that. And I think what we need to do is, we can't feel bad that we need to soothe. We do need to soothe.
Yeah.
So can we find healthier ways to soothe? Yeah. Can we acknowledge a need to self-soothe?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right? And, that's not namby-pamby, I'm not a man because I need to soothe myself. It's not that. We are sensitive and strong. Yeah. They're not different. They're not different things, So I think separating that out is now that we're going to face ourselves, now we're going to have to expose ourselves only to harshness. No. But we find a way to soothe ourselves in presence. Okay. And we find that balance.
Yeah.
Right? And I think every once in a while to have your meal and watch your show and come on, let's do it. There's no reason not to, so long as it's not that crutch to run away from life like it was for me. Yeah.
I'm feeling the YOLO vibe right now. But what is coming to mind is that as we are speaking about identity and spirituality, I feel we cannot separate the conversation around religion. Mm-hmm. I feel like there's always like a thin line, and not even for me to say there's a thin line, but to also say that identifying that one is following a spiritual path almost sounds like an excuse lately, because we don't want to sound like we are affiliating to a certain religion because of other things that people have found out about the religions that they subscribe to for different reasons, right? So what can you speak to in that light?
I think the world is big and it's complex, and one church is not like another church, one mosque is not like another mosque, one pastor is not like another pastor, and there exists in this life corruptions.
Yes. Right?
But I think I personally don't have any problem with religion, right? I find the overly dogmatic emphasis on, say, following rules without understanding the principles behind them or the energetics behind them, maybe too basic and not really going to solve your problem anyway. And it's just it's kind of that, it's kind of that rigid, maybe some of our parents were a little bit rigid and are passing on their rigid understanding of what religion is. And it doesn't seem like there's much to offer there, right? Yeah. So I do feel like you can discover spirituality through religion, and you can discover spirituality outside of religion, I do have a little bit of I don't really like this new age spirituality where it's like to be spiritual is the new cool identity.
Yeah, that's how it actually
That's one I'm not
sounds.
really. I have more problem with that than anything else, really.
Yeah.
But I think I've watched very, very amazing, like maybe recently I was listening to a podcast with a Catholic priest who was so spiritual. And the way he was explaining, you could see this guy was really connected, and I was listening and learning and catching nuances about him, because words are just pointers in this game of spirituality. It's the actual substance that you experience is the realm you're playing in. And you could see he was taking me on a journey. I'm like, wow, that's really interesting. Nice perspective, opening my perspective. And then I've seen pastors talk nonsense, right? So when we say religion, what are we talking about? We're talking about that guy or that guy or that guy. It's right. And let's talk about Islam, like some of the Sufi poets like Rumi, gentle, sweet, deep, nuanced, rich. Just listen to Rumi on love. Like you can't just dismiss all this.
Because they don't say I'm Rumi, I'm Pastor Rumi, or I am Yogi Rumi. They're just Rumi, and whatever they're sharing, you can resonate with it and you can find the light in it, right? I really, really appreciate that. I think the thing about human beings is just what I've gotten from what you're saying. Human beings can be very extremist. So they're jumping from religion because perhaps they've been traumatized in that space. Then they get into the spirituality, and then they try to be very extremist on that end as well. But it's just jumping from one trauma pot to the other. For me, that's just the observation that I'm making. We really struggle to find a good balance. And that happens, I think, because we don't want to be quiet. We still want to operate on the external sphere, that space, because look at the new agey, I'd call it a fad, because of how it exists on online. So it's cool, like we're meeting in the ocean. It's all about aesthetic. It's all about the things that you have, which still is not what we're talking about in terms of spirituality.
So how do you find that dance?
I love the question.
Where you're not going to the extreme, right?
Yes.
Really want to be Christian, so you're really hard on yourself, right? Like, have to wake up at this time, have to do this, have to do this, because you want to fit that extreme. Or you really want to be into, you're very evolved and you're spiritual. Now you change your clothes, you change everything about you, how you talk, how you walk. So how do you create that nice dance?
So I think you're inviting me to get into the meat of things.
Yes, please.
Right? Okay. So, and I want to, and it started with your question about the idea of spirituality versus what it really is, right? So let's just get into the meat and let's kind of find a way into this thing, okay? Let's talk about presence. Another word we could use, stillness, right? To be really present, to be very still, to be right here, right now, experiencing in this moment what is unfolding. Can I? Right? When you find that you cannot, that's the start of it. Why can you not? Why can you not hold your attention where you want to hold your attention, right here, right now, and experience that? Why does your mind send you here? And if you were to be present and find a way to be present, then what is your experience of existence? Because everything is there. There is only now. If you're out of now, you're out of life. If you're out of now, you're somewhere ethereal. If you're in now, right here, right now, you are present. You are spiritual. You cannot be right here, right now, experiencing exactly what is occurring and not experience the spiritual aspects of life, because they're right here, right now. They're there for you to experience, right? And that is the real life. The real life this surrendering to the unfolding of now and being present and being still. As soon as you do that, I'll tell you, immediately what happens is your capacity of what you're actually experiencing is magnified. The intensities are magnified. That's why I'm saying it's a portal to a real life. Your filters are out. You cannot hold your filters. Right? Mm-hmm. And so now all the struggles to do that are all your opportunities to have. You can sort them out. You can meditate. You can do yoga. You can pray. You can do all these different things that allow you to come back to right here, right now, where you access this real life. And if there is, I don't talk too much about God, but if there is God, he should be real and you should be able to experience him directly.
I love that.
Right? Mm-hmm. And if you don't want to call it God, you want to call it the universe, or it doesn't matter. It's just words. What is going on? Right? And this is where you kick these stupid, silly ideas out of things. You kick this nonsense, New Age spirituality with all its ideas and this and crystals and that and whatever. No, okay, I'm not saying I don't want to talk one way or another about crystals or tarot cards or whatever, but let's get to the practicality of it.
Correct.
Right? That's where you discover you, right? The way that you are taught to exist in this world is through conceptual thinking and abstraction. Mm-hmm. You create for yourself, or you're encouraged to create an abstraction of what your life is, right? Given to you by social media or by societal learnings or by school. This is what life is. And then you take all your experiences, you compare it to some conceptual ideal, and you decide if it's good or bad, like or don't like, addicted or averse, running towards or not. It's binary. It's all reactionary, right? And if you're in a reactionary mode, you're not still. To be still, you have to be equanimous. You need to remove yourself from this binary, like, don't like, run, don't run, go towards, run from. And then when you are still and you are equanimous and you kick this binary out of the way, you now see the qualitative aspects of your existence. You get into its nature, and you already have naturally in you the mechanism to know things by its taste. It may take a while to activate that in you, but this is part of our gift. This is and when you operate in this world like that, now you're living the real life. Do you want anyone to rob you of that real life? No way. Screw them all.
Wow, sounds like we have been robbed already.
And you don't make a good slave if you're like that. You're so powerful and so independent. You don't serve the machine anymore.
Because you can
when
actually
you are like that.
Stand.
Yes, and you're powerful.
Yeah.
And you're independent and you're brave. And you know the nature of things, and you cannot be manipulated so easily.
Wow.
And your influence on things, and you know how to influence things. Right? You're not a good slave. And you're living a real life, and that's your birthright. And that's why spirituality is relevant.
Wow. I'm sitting here listening to you. I'm like, what are you describing? Is this even real? Yeah. And I'm just looking at how easy it has been, even for young people that are embarking on understanding the religions that they're affiliated with and this path on spirituality, how hard it is, because as you earlier said, it's the traumas. And then it's the outward, they want to find it somewhere. And also they want to have an excuse for the somewhere that has made them not really embark on this path of spirituality. Yes. I have found that as a perfect example in my own life, that I am very quick to say, I no longer subscribe to this because Dosila is doing this.
Yes.
And but then I have never sat with myself to now be still and be that example that, guys, if you're saying that we are following this path, this is how it's exemplified. It's a whole suckers out here.
And don't follow the trend. I say to that, be exceptional. If you're a young person out there, why should you be scared to claim for yourself that you are exceptional? That this real life, to go deeper, to take a road that will give you access to the real, meaningful, rich life should not be yours to take. You know, there is so many levels in this life. Either you have funds or you don't have funds, you have status or you don't have status. This is so egalitarian. Do you have the courage? Do you have the desire? Do you have the drive to do it? And maybe this conversation is for everybody on some level. It benefits everybody, but maybe we're calling out to the exceptional. It's a calling. Hey, I'm talking to you. You know, you do it.
Yeah.
You can do it.
Yeah, and because I see young people a lot, okay, it's been said that they lack the agency, you know?
Yeah.
And this is what you're saying, that if you embrace on this path of spirituality, your agency is within.
Yes.
You will not tell us that in my community, there are too many problems. I cannot overcome.
Yeah.
You know, but if you look within, if you sit still and be within yourself, you can get that sense of agency, of course, that will open your eyes to the opportunities that are existing, that you can, you know, harness and make your life meaningful, you know.
And forgive me, you've invited me here, and I am happy to be here. But for you and for your viewers, you have to know I'm esoteric. I'm not for everybody, right?
What does that even mean?
Esoteric is specialized knowledge.
Okay.
For the initiated, for the few. But I open it to everybody. Everybody has access to this. Nobody is excluded. I just finished saying that nobody is excluded in this. But not everybody will take it up. Because when you go deeper into all of these things, these problems that you're saying, there's this problem, there's that problem, there's this problem, there's that problem, you discover they're not real, those problems.
They are fabricated.
Yes.
They're engineered.
They are, in the sense that they're kind of not part of this natural life. They're part of man's life, and they're imposed upon you. And you can say, am I going with this or not? Right? Because at the end of the day, what do you really need to exist? Right? And if you do this work and unlock your capacities, what is your potential in this existence? If you just want to be like self-interested and say, what is my move here for my best benefit? You'll still choose a spiritual path when you see the reality of it.
Okay.
So then you can dismiss those problems in a way, because this is more worthwhile. You'll get further doing this than you will doing that, solving this problem and that problem and whatever. And that's what lends an unreality to all of these problems. There's society's problems imposed upon you. The scarcity in reality. You know, we can get so deep into so many things, right? But just to tell you, by design, there is more debt than money. What does that mean? By design, there's more debt than there is money. So by design, you have to hustle.
Yeah,
that's by
this
design.
life will never balance. You know, the thing we say,
And you have to hustle, and you have to hustle, and you have to hustle, right? And when will that need to hustle ever end?
Sounds like never.
Okay. And let's see.
And you know, on a funny way that we've been saying, Kenyans, kupumzika tutapumzika mbinguni.
They don't know they're manifesting.
You know? Yeah, because it's like we will never rest. We will rest in heaven. Yeah.
And let's say you win the game. And so many do. You win the game. You got the Mercedes, you got the nice house, you got this, you got that, and you take what with you?
Nothing.
And what was it for then?
Exactly.
You get it.
Status.
Can you see the threads of the unreality of the whole game?
Exactly.
You can, if you just don't have to scratch that deep. There's an unreality to it.
Really?
One of the things that I really like that you spoke about is just how being nuanced is very important in how we view the world and how we view things. Like, we can't just say it's yes or no. We have to be able to
quality.
Exactly. Yeah, that qualitative aspect of it, because the world as it is, it's quantitative, but it's also very qualitative. So we can't move like there's no qualitative aspect of it.
Yeah.
And what I loved that I heard is that introduces the element of empathy. Because you're not just looking at people as numbers. You're looking at who are these people. You're able to actually go deep and investigate. And I love that because just as the world is evolving and what it's becoming, to some level for me, I feel like we are evolving backwards in terms of we're not able to really tap into the qualitative aspect of life. We're just focusing on the quantitative. I am, you're not, so I put myself here, right? And how do young people navigate that now, especially in a world whereby even us here in this country, in Kenya, the political class is trying to infiltrate that idea or that perspective through dividing us in terms of tribes, dividing us in religion and every other those stuff that would essentially bring us farther and farther from one another, and even just from ourselves, essentially. Yeah.
You've actually tapped on so many different neat things. Like but they're like, no, I'm really like, I love that perspective and what you're saying, and you said different things here, but let me just say, okay, like, to know something, to really understand something, to understand its nature, it does open the heart, right? We have an idea, for example, of Gaza, right? And I'm sure you have empathy for Gaza, right? But just spend a day there and see, a parent who's lost their child crying or trying to dig up their child from bomb rubble. It's another game altogether if you can actually experience that. Yeah. Now you're not having it. Let's say that you're an American and you went there and you saw that. When you come home, you have courage. You're not paying your damn taxes because your taxes are sending weapons there. There's a difference when you experience something to when it's an idea. I'll tell you this, there's no words you can use to describe a strawberry to someone who's never tasted a strawberry.
Nothing.
Maybe they've tasted a berry. Oh, it's like a raspberry. Okay. But then they still come back to the same problem because they've had to have tasted a raspberry. Right?
Yeah.
So experience is truth. Right? Most people, so many people, right? And tell me how many people come to mind when I say this. They can only understand things if they have a narrative about it. And then once they have a narrative, they can't see anything outside that narrative. We are talking about 60 to 70% of the people are like that. They're too far indoctrinated to escape now, right? Life is not narrative. Life is experiential. Knowledge is really knowing something. Comes from the taste of experience. And to know how to digest that experience, then you know. Narrative is but a thin shell. And every propaganda we're using, every story they're trying to manipulate us with, it's all narrative. But if you digest experience, you cannot be influenced by narrative. You're too sophisticated. You're not their slave anymore.
But I want to take you back to the aspect you talked about, like, which I resonate with, that you can be caught up in this rat race of amassing, but where are you taking these things? But then does that mean that we don't have to be ambitious? We don't have to want a comfortable life? Because there's some people who, when you're having that kind of thought process, they're thinking, okay, so you just want us to have an average life, like we can't have ambition just because we are pursuing spirituality. Like, what are you saying?
Okay, so let me throw out some interesting things that because you created a dichotomy between being spiritual and maybe even being poor.
Yeah, right? And then the whole old saying of religion is the opium of the poor. Like now, even me, I'm confused.
Yeah,
I just arrived at this topic.
Yeah, so this earth is abundant. If you know it, you know how to access that abundance, right? If you don't have any resistance to doing, and you don't have any fear, what can you accomplish? Right? No, it's in no way a diminishment.
Okay.
Right? It's like, it's, if you go, and we talked about this earlier, if you ask yourself, not what most people ask themselves, what am I going to do to survive? And what am I going to do to thrive? You ask yourself, what am I going to do? Right? You're here as a being for a short time on this earth. What am I going to do? Right? And you have now the capacity to unleash yourself without any resistance, fully into the doing of that. Is that not a real life?
Wow.
Will there not be abundance? Will there not be money? You're doing, you're creating, and I told you I'm not religious, but we go back to the Lord's Prayer, which has so much in it, which is, you ask God to give you your daily bread. And even if you don't like Christianity, you don't like that, it's like you are just called to do what you do. You're called to your purpose, and the rest takes care of itself.
Mm-hmm.
How does the rest? You discovered that the rest takes care of itself.
Well,
So you are free to be unleashed. Right?
What I'm hearing is the word trust.
we lack that a lot lately. We have been character developed by all angles.
All angles.
Yeah.
It's not at home. It's
At work, in our relationships.
That's lack of trust in ourselves, lack of trust in a God who you can pray to, give us our daily bread. You're like, but if I don't wake up,
No, show me a sign. Let me see some crumbles. If you're not ready to trust, the bread will be provided. You need a sign.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And can you trust it? And I think this is the crux of the hook.
Mm-hmm.
This is now, I think, the line between voluntarily choosing slavery or choosing your freedom. Right? Because this is where the fear comes from.
Yeah.
Right? If you could trust, and if it was not naive to say, because how naive you're going to be told if you say this, that God will provide, the universe will provide. Can you imagine your parents answering that question? You're like, or some auntie or uncle or something. Auntie, who's going to provide your bread?
Auntie, mom, I need bus fare. God will provide. Wow.
Right.
You won't trust mom.
So there, this is kind of like where it comes down to, and I think
that's now comes down to an individual discovery, right? And let me tell them, have faith. It would be like that. Anybody can say it. The pastor can say that. The guru can say that.
Yeah.
So I say, search for truth. And the truth filter. Search for faith. And, I'm talking a big game, and I thought my brother's voice in my mind.
Talk a good game, but he brings me back to earth, which is a very good thing, right?
Yeah.
And when you come back to earth, there are real challenges. Yeah. It is not easy. It's been a long, I've spent a lifetime moving this distance in the spiritual realm. You know what I mean? Yeah.
But you're moving nonetheless.
Right. And, things take time, and things haven't been easy. Right? But we red pilling or we blue pilling? You want the truth. Are you here for the truth? If you say in your heart, give me the truth, I can take it. Show me what is real. Right? Then you discover for yourself what is necessary, what you have to do. We bring it down to something out from Mambi, you're right out here. We talked platitudes. Those are real. Mm-hmm. Those exist. Everything is part of it. But we bring it down to this moment, what I have to do. And if you're saying, I want to know the truth, show me the truth. A prayer to God, the universe, or whatever. Mm-hmm. Right? And you're ready to handle that truth. Is that not the path to a real life? Saying truth, real life. Right? And I'm just arguing, right, that you're not going to find truth in narrative. You're going to find truth in experience. And if you're never paying attention to your experiences, where are you ever going to see it? And that's ultimately my point.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately my message. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. Look at what you're experiencing. Start to pay attention. Mm-hmm. Find that stillness, because it's from that stillness and that equanimity you start to see things as they really are. Mm-hmm. Then you'll see whether... But I think what happens, right? Mm-hmm. At some point in time, you're moved and you don't care whether you eat or not. I'll be honest.
True.
Right? Things start to matter to you. Mm-hmm. You don't like things. You do, and you feel like the no, that's not right.
Yeah, but strong conviction.
Yeah, you access your strength. Mm-hmm. Like, like the U.S. citizen who goes to Gaza and sees this lady trying to pull up the rubble to release a child, and that moment moves them. When they get back to the States, they don't give a shit.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, can I swear? Sorry.
Yeah, you're speaking too much French.
Right, Pole, pardon.
Sorry.
Right? They don't care.
Mm-hmm.
They're not paying their taxes. They're moved now.
Yeah.
Because that moment had truth in it. I'm not going to be a part of this.
Mm-hmm.
Because that energy, the quality of that energy is like, I'm not participating in this. They're not taking my money to do this. It's just not happening now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, whether you're going to eat or not eat is not part of the equation at that moment in time. And I feel like when you get into the nitty-gritty of things, you can be moved in such a way. And you see there's a power in that.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to starve with that kind of power in your heart. You know?
Mm.
I love that. I think the one thing that I'm learning even myself, even just by recording this podcast episode, first of all, I've never sat with a yogi before. Even spent a considerable amount of time with a yogi. So even for me, because I've never experienced that, perhaps I came in with my own ideas, right? Maybe all we can say is just hi, we can laugh, we can do this. But now that I've experienced it, I'm like, even my own perceived notions of how this experience would be, I realized, okay, Drusilla, you need to be more open. So for me, it is expanding me. Yeah. And I think that expansion essentially as a collective is something we really need, because now we wouldn't look at each other and be like, you have really long hair and a really beard, and now we shouldn't have a conversation, or you're so different from me. No, I feel like we've connected, and from that human experience, you're like, oh, okay, we can actually vibe, we can actually talk and speak. And for me, I love the spiritual aspect of it brings us together, that togetherness that perhaps we lack today. So I think for a young person, this is something that they would, especially if they try and base it from a very young age, they'll be able to connect with themselves and even with each other, and then create a livable world, honestly, for everyone.
It's funny you said, I never really thought of myself as a yogi, by the way. Seriously.
She was referring.
No, but it's I know that. And I think to myself, like, maybe I am a yogi. Why don't I just take that mantle on, right? But in my youth, I was a party promoter. I owned a nightclub, right? Like,
you have lived.
I skydive, I dive, like.
Who is Kareem?
I'm a very unconventional yogi, if I am, right?
The beginning.
Why did you pick that? No.
Identity and spirituality.
And even to be honest, this is a very strange thing, and I can't explain to. I hear something, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I have this beard. I just one day, somewhere decided I'm not cutting my hair. I decided I just don't want to cut my hair. Then, my father, he was, very close to my father. He's like God to me. My father was so beautiful, right? And then even when my mom was passing, and they've asked me to cut my beard and cut my hair, and I have for them. And once I did for my father, and once I did for my mother, and after I did it once for them, I said, I'm not doing it anymore for anybody, right? And I just didn't feel like it. What I noticed when I cut it is I felt different. I started paying attention to what I was feeling. And then when I cut it, I felt different. Now I walk around with this image. I look in the mirror. I sometimes scare myself.
Like, who is this guy?
I'm not setting out to look like this, It's just an unfolding.
Yeah.
Really. But let me maybe take on the mantle of yogi, because I was so drawn to yoga. I've been so drawn to meditation and Vipassana meditation, other kinds of meditation. They call me, right? I listen to yogis all the time. So maybe I can take that mantle in spirit of being a yogi and stuff like that. But your point of not judging a book by its cover, but by its content, not image, not narrative.
Not aesthetics.
What is the experience of knowing me? Now that will tell you who I am and what I am. And look, we've been staying here in this beautiful place. I hope they pan and show where we are. It's so beautiful, and how we're personally connecting and getting to know each other. And it's that experience that will tell you who I am, or me to tell you who you are. Rather than, isn't that narrative or that label so small? Right? You know, you'll get people who do like this and do like this, and they'll purport to be this yogi and this spiritual guy, and you listen to what you're saying, and you just feel like, well, this isn't resonating, right? So if you feel that, then leave it.
Because we live in a time where there's a lot of information out there. Sometimes as young people, we can find ourselves trying to listen to everything because we are just running. Yeah. So we look at this guru, this guru, this guru, this guru. But essentially what I'm taking away from this conversation is I need to listen to myself. Just sit with yourself. And even how you've talked about how your beard made you feel when you cut it. There's information in our bodies, and our body is always speaking to us. So we need to just pay attention to the senses, right? The feel, the touch, the smell, like what are you feeling? Even when it's hard, right? And even for any young person listening to this conversation, I am deeply encouraged on their behalf. Deeply encouraged because the information is there, but essentially what we're saying is you are the information. Just go deeper. Sit with it. I like what you said yesterday when we were having dinner. That feeling is not gonna kill you.
So it's just a feeling.
It's not just
a feeling of confronting trauma. You need to have support for yourself, support around you. Sometimes you need someone who cares, who's been through it, to hold your hand and walk you through it. It's hard to do it sometimes by yourself, but at the end, it's just a feeling, and it's not personal. I said it's not personal.
Yes.
You know, whether it's feelings of shame or worthiness, it's not personal. This world is traumatizing us all. And someone who's been through that trauma, felt it, took it so personally, but understood, overcame it, can then take somebody else by the hand and say, look, it's not as personal as you think it is. It's okay. You are.
Yeah.
And then then when you get your two angels established properly here, one accountability and the other compassion, and they firmly mount your shoulders, then you can process your own trauma. Because you will take accountability for things, but you'll also give yourself that requisite love that you need to experience anything. Because if you're trying to do that, you're trying to go on a path of change, of positivity. You've taken on the mantle of courage. And now you need to reward yourself for that with your compassion and understanding as you see uncomfortable truths.
I think you have done the summary of this conversation very well. That the power is within. So as young people, as even older people who are listening to us, your path to discovering your spirituality is within.
So let's maybe say something practical, because you've been everywhere, right? Take on a practice that calls you.
Yes.
Take on a practice. Let's be very practical now. If yoga calls you, do yoga. If martial arts calls you, do martial arts. If meditation calls you,
if prayer calls you,
do that, right? Something in which you put your attention on something. So you train your mind to put your attention on something and go deep into something. Bas, that's a good starting point.
Correct.
It will take you somewhere.
Wow. I think that's just it. Yeah. It's not rocket science, but it is the hard work in the fast moving world. But it's possible. And it can start at any time, as you're saying.
It's your portal. It'll take you.
Yes. Wow, Kareem. Thank you so much. I have personally benefited a great deal. This is the first conversation where I'm not even feeling like we need to stop. I'm not even disturbed with where is this going, because every articulation, every submission is making absolute sense. And we hope that everybody else that is going to listen to this is also going to, introspect and begin being present, embrace and accountability, because most people say young people, they want, but they don't want to be accountable. But again, even the path to spirituality requires a level of accountability and responsibility. So our wonderful...
I would like to say just also, I've really also enjoyed the questions, enjoyed this frame, enjoyed spending time with you guys. I felt really... I feel like there's a connection, and it's making me happy and joyous and grateful. So let me also say thank you so much. Yeah.
This is the first time we have been thanked. No, we are not dissing all our other guests. We love you. Yeah, and our favorite people who are watching us, following us, we hope that you'll find this quite enriching, and it will expand your horizon on embracing your identity and your spirituality. This has been our time from Tangawizi Podcast. Follow us, comment, engage us, and we would love to hear from you. It's been our time. Bye.